I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed.
All we say to America is be true to what you said on paper.
Just at 8 this morning, Dr. Martin Luther King's body was brought to Lyon State for an hour. Hundreds paid their respects.
Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s influential public life stands as a pivotal and celebrated chapter in 20th century American history. As a trailblazer and driving force of the civil rights movement during the 1950s and 1960s, he emerged as one of the era's most prominent and effective orators, leaving an indelible mark on the collective American consciousness through his impassioned speeches delivered at protests and rallies nationwide. Beyond his public endeavors, Dr. King led a bustling domestic life with his wife, Coretta Scott King, and their 4 children, Martin Luther King III, Dexter, Yolanda, and Bernice. The King family, at the time of Dr. King's untimely assassination on April 4, 1968, when he was fatally shot by gunman James Earl Ray on the balcony of the Lorraine Motel in Memphis, Tennessee, was composed of young children. The profound impact of Dr. King's death, however, did not signify the conclusion of the civil rights movement, as demonstrated by the 100,000 mourners who attended his funeral. The legacy of Dr. King lives on through his children, who have taken up the mantle of social justice and equality. Martin Luther King III, Dexter, Yolanda, and Bernice, along with other family members, have continued to champion the ideals and principles that defined their father's mission. Moreover, the torch has been passed to the next generation, as Dr. King's teenage granddaughter has also joined in the efforts to uphold and extend his legacy. Yolanda Denise King, born on November 17, 1955, stands as the eldest offspring of the esteemed Dr. Martin Luther King. Her life unfolded against the backdrop of the turbulent 1960s, and she spent the formative 12 years of her youth in the presence of her father before his tragic demise on a Memphis hotel balcony. Yolanda's early years were marked by a poignant awareness of racism, as she encountered firsthand the challenges of prejudice and segregation, factors that are believed to have directly influenced her father's iconic "I Have a Dream" speech. In this seminal address, Dr. King envisioned a society where children, including Yolanda herself, would be shielded from the shackles of discrimination. Despite her acute political consciousness, Yolanda made a distinct choice not to follow in her father's footsteps of direct political activism. However, she remained an eloquent speaker, addressing numerous events dedicated to commemorating and perpetuating her father's legacy. Opting for a career as an actress, a choice that her father may have perceived as inconsequential, Yolanda nevertheless achieved success in the field. In an interview with People, she revealed that her father, renowned for his charisma and stage presence, would have taken pride in her accomplishments. Beyond her theatrical pursuits, Yolanda displayed academic prowess by specializing in African American studies. Her intellectual endeavors culminated in the attainment of a master's degree from New York University. Tragically, Yolanda passed away on May 15, 2007, at the age of 51, just a year after the death of her mother in January 2006. Her departure marked the loss of a significant figure who, despite choosing a different path, remained deeply connected to the enduring legacy of her father and the ongoing struggle for civil rights and equality. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s eldest son, Martin Luther King II, was entrusted with the responsibility of carrying forward his father's distinguished name, a customary practice in many prominent families. Born on October 23, 1957, he was just 10 years old when his father was tragically assassinated. Despite the profound tragedy that marked his early years, King III remained committed to his father's legacy, emulating his example of diligent academic pursuits. Displaying a keen interest in politics, he earned a degree in political science from Morehouse College. Embarking on a political career, King III initiated his public service in 1986 in Fulton County, where he dedicated his efforts as a member of the Board of Commissioners. Over the years, Martin Luther King III has emerged as a prominent figure in civil rights activism. He assumed the role of president of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, an organization founded by his father. In addition, he took on the chairmanship of the board of the Drum Major Institute, an institution dedicated to advancing social justice and equality, where he actively continues his father's work through compelling speeches, activism, and the implementation of impactful social programs. In 2006, Martin Luther King III entered a new chapter in his personal life by marrying Andrea Waters King. In the year 2024, Andrea Waters King was serving as the president of the Drum Major Institute, further cementing the couple's commitment to the shared vision of promoting social justice and equality. Through his multifaceted contributions to politics, civil rights, and social advocacy, Martin Luther King III exemplifies a steadfast commitment to carrying forward his father's legacy, ensuring that the principles of justice and equality remain at the forefront of societal discourse. Dexter Scott King, the third child and second son of the iconic Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., was born on January 30, 1961, and tragically lost his father at the tender age of 7. Following in the footsteps of his father and older brother, Dexter embarked on a path of higher education, enrolling at Morehouse College. Unlike his family members who pursued politics, Dexter chose to delve into business studies. However, despite his academic pursuits, he did not complete his degree, opting instead to venture into the music industry. Dexter's foray into the music world included collaborations with renowned artists such as Prince and Whitney Houston on a memorial album dedicated to his father's memory. Subsequently, he shifted his career trajectory and became an attorney, ultimately ascending to the position of chairman of the King Center, a foundation established in honor of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. In 2004, Dexter Scott King added author to his list of accomplishments with the publication of his memoir, titled Growing Up King. The memoir provided a poignant exploration of the profound impact his father's assassination had on his childhood, offering insights into the unique challenges he faced growing up in the shadow of a monumental figure in American history. On a personal note, Dexter Scott King entered a new chapter in 2013 when he married Leah Weber. Tragically, on January 22, 2024, news surfaced that Dexter Scott King had succumbed to cancer at the age of 62. His passing elicited an outpouring of grief from many quarters, including members of the King family. In a statement addressing her husband's passing, Leah Weber King expressed that Dexter transitioned peacefully in his sleep at their home in Malibu after bravely battling the debilitating disease. Martin Luther King III took to the platform X, formerly known as Twitter, to share the heartbreaking news and request prayers for the entire King family, especially Dexter's grieving wife, Leah Weber King. The sudden loss of Dexter Scott King marks a poignant moment in the ongoing narrative of the King family's enduring legacy and commitment to the ideals of justice and equality. Bernice Albertine King, the youngest offspring of the revered Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., has carved a path reminiscent of her father's by embracing the role of a preacher. Born on March 28, 1963, she experienced the profound loss of her father at the tender age of 5. Reflecting on her own journey, Bernice sees poignant parallels between her experience of loss and the racially fueled violence that claimed the life of George Floyd in 2020. Particularly empathizing with Floyd's 6-year-old daughter, whose father's tragic death sparked global protests. In her formative years, Bernice delved into academia, studying psychology and divinity. She ultimately assumed the mantle of a preacher at Ebenezer Baptist Church, a sacred space where 3 generations of her family had worshipped. Over time, she ascended to the position of senior pastor, leaving an indelible mark on her community through her impassioned sermons. despite her significant contributions to the church and community. Bernice's relationship with her siblings has experienced occasional strains, laid bare through numerous public disputes. In 2016, she found herself embroiled in a legal challenge from her two brothers, who, along with her, shared their father's estate. The dispute centered on the right to sell Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s Nobel Prize and Bible, both of which were in Bernice's possession. Ultimately, a judge ruled against her, ordering her to relinquish these cherished items to her brothers. The decision was met with significant public attention and commentary. According to The Guardian, Bernice viewed the potential sale of her father's Nobel Prize and Bible as unthinkable. The legal dispute underscored the complex dynamics within the King family and the challenges associated with managing the legacy of a towering figure in American history. Bernice Albertine. King's journey, marked by her commitment to preaching and community leadership, is intertwined with the complexities of familial relationships and the ongoing stewardship of her father's legacy. As she continues to navigate her path, she remains a significant figure whose experiences and perspectives contribute to the broader narrative of civil rights, justice, and equality in the United States.
Renee King, granddaughter of Martin Luther King and Coretta Scott King.
Yolanda Renee King, the sole granddaughter of the esteemed Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., is the daughter of Martin Luther King III and his wife, Andrea Waters King. Despite being a teenager, Yolanda Renee has embraced her family's profound civil rights heritage. Notably, she affirms that her commitment to a life of political activity and public service has been a personal choice, rather than a result of external pressures, as reported by NPR. Yolanda Renee first entered the public eye at a remarkably young age. In 2018, at the tender age of 10, she delivered a compelling speech at the March for Our Lives rally in Washington, D.C. Her speech, directed at her generation, encouraged young people who were not yet eligible to vote to become politically active. This early foray into advocacy marked the beginning of Yolanda Renee's commitment to galvanizing her peers towards civic engagement. In more recent engagements, Yolanda Renee has continued to make her voice heard on critical issues. Notably, she has delivered impactful speeches emphasizing the importance of expanding voting rights. Her advocacy extends beyond rhetoric, as she actively participates in her family's campaign efforts on this matter. Yolanda Renee's insights have not been limited to live events. She has also appeared on reputable news outlets, such as CNN, where her articulate perspectives have resonated with audiences. During an interview with CNN presenter Dana Bash, Yolanda Renee expressed her belief that older generations have failed to fully realize her grandfather's dream of a truly equal, equitable, and just society. In her view, the responsibility now falls upon the next generation to rectify these shortcomings and pave the way for meaningful societal change. Her eloquent and impassioned stance reflects a generational commitment to the ongoing pursuit of justice and equality, highlighting the enduring relevance of the King family's legacy in shaping the trajectory of civil rights in America. Let us now delve into the life and professional trajectory of the progenitor of these offspring, Martin Luther King Jr. Martin Luther King Jr., originally named Michael King Jr., was born on January 15, 1929, in Atlanta, Georgia, as the second of three children to Michael King Sr. and Alberta King, née Williams. His siblings included an older sister, Christine King Ferris, and a younger brother, Alfred Daniel, A.D. King. King's maternal grandfather, Adam Daniel Williams, was a minister in rural Georgia before relocating to Atlanta in 1893 and assuming the role of the pastor of the Ebenezer Baptist Church the following year. King Sr., born to sharecroppers James Albert and Delia King of Stockbridge, Georgia, had African-Irish descent. During his adolescence, King Sr. departed from his parents' farm and made his way to Atlanta, where he acquired a high school education. Subsequently, he enrolled in Morehouse College with aspirations of entering the ministry. King Sr. and Alberta commenced their courtship in 1920 and formalized their union on November 25, 1926. Until the passing of Alberta's mother, Jenny Celeste Parks, in 1941, the couple resided on the second floor of her parents' Victorian house, where Martin Luther King Jr. was born. At their childhood home, King and his siblings engaged in the practice of reading aloud the Bible, guided by the teachings of their father. Post-dinner, King's grandmother, affectionately referred to as Mama, regaled them with vibrant stories from the Bible. King Sr. employed disciplinary measures, including whippings, to instill values in his children, occasionally having them administer the discipline to each other. Despite these methods, King Sr. noted that Martin Luther King Jr. would stoically endure the discipline, shedding tears without expressing vocal distress. A noteworthy incident in King's childhood involved an emotionally charged encounter between his brother A.D. and sister Christine. Witnessing A.D. upset Christine, Martin Luther King Jr. intervened by using a telephone to render A.D. unconscious. In another incident, while playing at home, A.D. accidentally caused Jenny to fall, prompting King to believe she was dead. Overwhelmed with guilt, King attempted by jumping from a second-story window. Upon learning that his grandmother was alive, he miraculously rose from the ground, demonstrating the profound impact of familial relationships on his early life. King established a friendship with a white boy whose father owned a business adjacent to his family's home. Their connection began around the age of 6, and in September 1935, they commenced their formal education. However, the stark racial segregation of the time forced King to attend Yonge Street Elementary School, designated for black children, while his friend enrolled in a school exclusively for white children. Regrettably, the parents of the white boy terminated their son's association with King, conveying the hurtful message that racial differences precluded their friendship. Confronted with this painful rejection, King's parents seized the opportunity for a profound teaching moment. They candidly discussed the historical context of slavery and racism in America, an experience that initially fueled young King's determination to harbor resentment toward all white individuals. However, his parents, guided by Christian principles, imparted the crucial lesson that it was his duty to love everyone, transcending the boundaries of prejudice. Witnessing his father's principled stand against segregation and discrimination left an indelible mark on King. In a poignant encounter with a police officer who condescendingly referred to King Sr. as boy, his father firmly asserted his identity. Another notable incident occurred in a downtown Atlanta shoe store, where the clerk insisted they sit at the back due to their race. King Sr. resolutely declared that they would either buy shoes sitting where they pleased or not purchase any at all, leaving the store with King in tow. This steadfast refusal to accept segregation left a lasting impression on young Martin Luther King Jr. In 1936, King's father led a civil rights march to Atlanta City Hall, mobilizing hundreds of African Americans to protest voting rights discrimination. This pivotal moment further solidified King Sr.'s role as a significant influence and role model in his son's life. Tragically, on May 18, 1941, King received distressing news while sneakily watching a parade. His maternal grandmother had suffered a heart attack and died en route to the hospital. Wrestling with guilt over his clandestine excursion, King jumped out of a second-story window in despair. However, he survived, and his father, recognizing the weight of King's guilt, consoled him by emphasizing that his grandmother's passing was part of God's plan. Struggling with this profound loss, King's father made a significant decision to relocate the family to a 2-story brick home on a hill overlooking downtown Atlanta. This move marked a transformative moment in King's life, symbolizing both a physical and metaphorical ascent above the challenges of racism and adversity. In his adolescent years, Martin Luther King Jr. grappled with feelings of resentment towards whites, a sentiment stemming from the pervasive racial humiliation experienced by him, his family, and their neighbors. Despite these challenges, at the age of 13 in 1942, King achieved a noteworthy milestone by becoming the youngest assistant manager of a newspaper delivery station for the Atlanta Journal. That same year, he skipped the 9th grade and entered Booker T. Washington High School, the sole educational institution in the city catering to African American students, where he maintained a commendable B+ average. While nurtured in a Baptist household, King, entering adolescence, began questioning the literalist teachings imparted at his father's church. At the age of 13, he openly denied the bodily resurrection of Jesus during Sunday school. His disillusionment extended to the emotional displays exhibited by congregants in his father's church, leading him to doubt whether he would find personal satisfaction in religious practices. King reflected on this period in his life, acknowledging that doubts began to spring forth unrelentingly. In high school, King distinguished himself for his eloquent public speaking abilities, his voice evolving into a resonant baritone. Joining the school's debate team, he demonstrated a keen interest in history and English, ultimately selecting English and sociology as his primary subjects. Known for his extensive vocabulary, King, nonetheless, sought assistance from his sister Christine for spelling, reciprocating by aiding her with math. Beyond academics, King exhibited an interest in fashion, frequently donning polished patent leather shoes and tweed suits, earning him the affectionate nickname Tweed or Tweedy among his friends. These formative years laid the groundwork for King's intellectual and social development as he navigated the complexities of race, faith, and personal identity, foreshadowing the impactful contributions he would make in the realms of civil rights and social justice. In 1951, Martin Luther King Jr. embarked on his doctoral studies in systematic theology at Boston University. Concurrently, he served as an assistant minister at Boston's historic 12th Baptist Church alongside William Hunter Hester, an influential figure and an old friend of King's father. This period in Boston proved formative for King, who forged friendships with local ministers of his age, engaging in theological discussions and addressing social issues during their apartment bull sessions. Noteworthy among his contemporaries was Michael Haynes, the associate pastor at 12th Baptist Church in Roxbury. At the age of 25 in 1954, King assumed the pastoral role at the Dexter Avenue Baptist Church in Montgomery, Alabama. His work at the church, known for its influence in the Montgomery African American community, solidified his reputation as an oratorical preacher in the region. In June 1955, King earned his Ph.D. with a dissertation titled A Comparison of the Conceptions of God in the Thinking of Paul Tillich and Henry Nelson Weeman, supervised by Edgar S. Brightman and later by Lotan Harold DeWolf after Brightman's passing. In March 1955, Claudette Colvin's refusal to give up her bus seat to a white man and Rosa Parks's subsequent arrest on December 1, 1955, ignited the Montgomery bus boycott. Urged and planned by Edgar Nixon, King assumed a leadership role due to his relative newness to community leadership, making him more amenable to the position. Despite initial hesitation, King's involvement intensified, and the boycott endured for 385 days. The tension escalated to the point where King's residence was bombed. His arrest for a minor traffic violation catapulted him into the national spotlight, elevating his public stature significantly. The climax of the bus boycott occurred when the United States District Court issued a groundbreaking ruling in Browder v. Gale, prohibiting racial segregation on Montgomery public buses. King's pivotal role in this civil rights milestone transformed him into a national figure and the foremost spokesman of the burgeoning civil rights movement. His eloquence, strategic leadership, and unwavering commitment to justice positioned him at the forefront of a transformative era in American history. In 1957, Martin Luther King Jr., alongside Ralph Abernathy, Fred Shuttlesworth, Joseph Lowery, and other prominent civil rights activists, co-founded the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, SCLC. This organization aimed to leverage the moral authority and organizational capacity of black churches to orchestrate nonviolent protests for the advancement of civil rights reform. The inspiration for the SCLC stemmed from the evangelistic crusades of Billy Graham, who had developed a friendship with King, and the national organizing efforts of the group In Friendship, founded by King's allies Stanley Levison and Ella Baker. King served as the leader of the SCLC until his untimely death. A significant milestone for the SCLC occurred in 1957 with the Prayer Pilgrimage for Freedom, marking the first occasion when King addressed a national audience. In collaboration with the Gandhi Society, King produced a document urging President Kennedy to issue an executive order as a symbolic Second Emancipation Proclamation. However, Kennedy did not enact the order. Notably, concerns about communist infiltration led to the FBI, under the directive of Attorney General Robert F. Kennedy, wiretapping King's telephone in 1963. This action, fueled by fears of communist ties within the SCLC, aimed to safeguard the administration's civil rights initiatives. King strategically believed in organized, nonviolent protests as a means to garner media attention and expose the systemic injustices of Southern segregation embodied by Jim Crow laws. The resulting journalistic accounts and televised footage depicting the daily indignities suffered by Southern blacks and the violence perpetrated against civil rights supporters elicited widespread sympathy. This wave of public opinion positioned the civil rights movement as the paramount issue in American politics during the early 1960s. Under King's leadership, the SCLC orchestrated marches advocating for blacks' voting rights, desegregation, labor rights, and other fundamental civil rights. Notably, the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965 were monumental legislative victories that addressed many of the rights for which King and the SCLC had fervently advocated. The SCLC's success in employing nonviolent protest tactics was evident in its strategic selection of methods and locations for protests, often leading to dramatic confrontations with segregationist authorities that occasionally escalated into violence. This persistent and courageous activism played a pivotal role in dismantling the legal framework of segregation and advancing the cause of civil rights in the United States. On September 20th, 1958, while autographing copies of his book Stride Toward Freedom at Bloomstein's department store in Harlem, Martin Luther King Jr. encountered a tragic incident. Izola Curry, a mentally ill black woman who harbored unfounded suspicions that King was conspiring against her with communists, attacked him with a letter opener, stabbing him in the chest perilously close to the aorta. Prompt first aid was administered by police officers Al Howard and Philip Romano. Following the attack, King underwent emergency surgery performed by doctors Aubrey de Lambert Maynard, Emile Naclerio, and John W. V. Cordis, necessitating an extended hospitalization. Curry, found mentally incompetent to stand trial, exemplified the complexities surrounding mental health and its intersection with violence. Despite the incident, King's commitment to the civil rights cause remained unwavering. In December 1959, after spending 5 years in Montgomery, King responded to the Southern Christian Leadership Conference's SCLC request and announced his return to Atlanta. In April 1963, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, SCLC, initiated a significant campaign against racial segregation and economic injustice in Birmingham, Alabama. This pivotal effort, guided in part by Wyatt T. Walker, employed nonviolent yet intentionally confrontational tactics to address systemic issues. Collaborating with the SCLC, black individuals in Birmingham took part in marches and sit-ins, purposefully violating laws they deemed unjust, with the goal of occupying public spaces and challenging discriminatory practices. The response from the Birmingham Police Department, under the leadership of Eugene "Bull" Connor, was characterized by the use of high-pressure water jets and police dogs against protesters, including children. Gripping footage of these confrontations was broadcast on national television, profoundly impacting white Americans and garnering widespread support for the civil rights movement among Black Americans. While the SCLC's avowed intentions were nonviolent, not all demonstrators adhered to this approach, with some engaging in confrontations with the police, who responded with force. This led to criticism of King and the SCLC for placing children in potentially dangerous situations. Despite these challenges, the Birmingham campaign achieved notable successes. Connor lost his job, segregationist Jim Crow signs were removed, and public spaces became more accessible to Black individuals. King's reputation also experienced a significant improvement during this period. Throughout the campaign, King faced arrest and incarceration, marking his 13th arrest out of a total of 29. While confined in his cell, King penned the renowned Letter from Birmingham Jail, responding to calls advocating for the pursuit of legal channels for social change. Regarded as one of the most important historical documents crafted by a modern political prisoner, the letter articulated King's philosophy of nonviolent resistance, elucidated the urgency of the civil rights cause, and underscored the moral imperative to confront injustice. The Birmingham campaign and the subsequent letter played pivotal roles in advancing the civil rights movement, reshaping public opinion, and galvanizing support for the ongoing struggle against racial segregation and injustice. Martin Luther King Jr., representing the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, SCLC, emerged as a prominent leader among the Big Six civil rights organizations, pivotal in organizing the historic March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom on August 28, 1963. This transformative event sought to address specific demands, including an end to racial segregation in public schools, the enactment of meaningful civil rights legislation, prohibiting racial discrimination in employment, protection for civil rights workers against police brutality, the establishment of a $2 minimum wage for all workers, equivalent to $19 in 2022, and self-government for Washington, D.C., then under the jurisdiction of a congressional committee. Despite underlying tensions, the March on Washington proved to be a resounding success, attracting over 250,000 people from diverse ethnic backgrounds. The participants gathered not only on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, but also extended onto the expansive grounds of the National Mall. Notably, this gathering marked the largest protest in the history of Washington, D.C. at the time. During this historic event, King delivered a powerful 17-minute speech that would become iconic as "I Have a Dream." In a moment of departure from his prepared text, King, possibly prompted by Mahalia Jackson, who exclaimed, "Tell them about the dream," shared his vision for a racially harmonious and just society. "I Have a Dream" would go on to be acclaimed as one of the finest speeches in the annals of American oratory. The impact of the March on Washington, particularly King's eloquent speech, reverberated across the nation, bringing civil rights to the forefront of the reform agenda. This heightened awareness and public sentiment significantly contributed to the eventual passage of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, a landmark piece of legislation that aimed to dismantle institutionalized segregation and discrimination, marking a crucial milestone in the ongoing struggle for equality and justice. In 1968, Martin Luther King Jr. became one of the signatories supporting the convening of a convention to draft a world constitution. This initiative led to the establishment of the World Constituent Assembly, which gathered in 1968 to draft and adopt the Constitution for the Federation of Earth. Demonstrating his commitment to justice and equality on a global scale, King's involvement in this effort reflected his vision for a more inclusive and harmonious world order. On March 29, 1968, King traveled to Memphis, Tennessee, to express support for Black sanitation workers represented by AFSEAM Local 1733. These workers had been on strike since March 12th, advocating for higher wages and fair treatment. One notable incident involved Black Street repairmen being paid for only 2 hours when sent home due to bad weather, while their white counterparts received compensation for the full day. During his visit to Memphis, King addressed a rally and delivered his renowned "I've Been to the Mountaintop" speech at Mason Temple on April 3rd. This speech, given in the context of the ongoing struggle for workers' rights, would tragically be one of King's last public addresses. King's accommodation in Memphis was at room 306 of the Lorraine Motel, a place frequented by him and his entourage, known colloquially as the King Abernathy Suite. On the evening of April 4, 1968, tragedy struck as James Earl Ray fatally shot King at 6:01 p.m. while he stood on the motel's second-floor balcony. The bullet's trajectory from King's right cheek through his jaw and spinal cord before lodging in his shoulder proved fatal. Despite emergency surgery, King succumbed to his injuries at St. Joseph's Hospital at 7:05 p.m. The autopsy revealed signs of stress, with King's heart displaying characteristics more commonly associated with a 60-year-old, even though he was only 39 at the time. Initially interred in Southview Cemetery in South Atlanta, King's remains were later transferred in 1977 to a tomb on the grounds of the Martin Luther King Jr. National Historical Park. The tragic assassination had profound consequences, sparking race riots in numerous cities, including Washington, D.C., Chicago, Baltimore, Louisville, and Kansas City, underscoring the deep impact of King's legacy on the national consciousness and the ongoing struggle for civil rights. Martin Luther King Jr.'s legacy stands as an enduring testament to the indomitable power of moral courage, visionary leadership, and unwavering commitment to justice. His transformative impact on the civil rights movement, marked by iconic speeches and nonviolent protests, laid the groundwork for dismantling institutionalized segregation and advancing the cause of equality for all. Beyond the national stage, King's vision extended globally, as evidenced by his advocacy for a world constitution and his belief in the interconnectedness of humanity. The tragic end to King's life on April 4, 1968, at the Lorraine Motel in Memphis, serves as a poignant reminder of the sacrifices made in the pursuit of a more just society. Despite his untimely death, King's teachings, values, and principles continue to resonate, inspiring subsequent generations to champion the cause of civil rights and social justice. The Martin Luther King Jr. National Historical Park, where his remains rest, serves as a tangible symbol of his enduring influence. As we reflect on King's life and legacy, we are reminded of the ongoing journey toward a more inclusive and equitable world. In our collective pursuit of justice and equality, we draw inspiration from the enduring words of a leader who dared to dream of a future where individuals are judged not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. Martin Luther King Jr.'s legacy remains a guiding light, urging us to press forward with compassion, understanding, and a resolute commitment to the principles of equality and justice for all.